everybody. Welcome back to the Human Nutrition and Lifestyle Podcast. I'm pleased to introduce again to you Mr. Brian Sanders. If anybody didn't realize, we had Brian on the podcast a couple of years ago now. It was when we first started talking to people on the podcast. I think it was episode 6, if you want to go back and listen to episode 6. So today, again, we get to catch up with Brian and see if his nutrition lifestyle is still very similar to what it was before, and listen to any different things that he's picked up along the way. So welcome, Brian. If you just want to introduce yourself again, just to people who don't know you, tell us a bit about what your nutrition lifestyle actually is.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for having me back. So I've been on a 9-year journey. I started as a mechanical engineer. So it was sort of, nothing to do with nutrition, but I found my way here. And now it's all I do. Making a film called Food Lies that turned into a 6-part series. So that's all about this stuff. I've interviewed hundreds of people along the way. I have my own podcast called Peak Human. I have a whole company with a doctor called Sapien, and we help people get better, get off medications, fix not all their problems. It's pretty hard to fix all your problems, but so many problems can be fixed through diet and lifestyle, through nutrition. And I do that. And then I also have a company called Nose to Tail, because along the way, a couple of years ago, I was like, hey, I need to support regenerative agriculture and, put my money where my mouth is and say, hey, this is the solution. Meat is a health food. We just need to raise it better. And so I do that here in the States, get people out, good meat, body care products, stuff like that. But yeah, I'm just all about this stuff. The film Food Lies, I guess we call it a series, docu-series, hopefully will be done by the end of the year. We're trying to get it on Netflix. The whole idea is to go mainstream, go big, let the world see this, put all this information into one film, one series. It's a 6-part series. It would be a 3-hour film, right? So we had to break it up into 6-part series. So it's, like 30-minute episodes, and it covers pretty much everything. And we can cover maybe all of it today. See what we can get into.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I'm so excited that you're going to be bringing that out. And it sounds like it's going to be hitting every single avenue of going down and breaking it down for everybody. Because when people say try and get podcasts out there and try and get films out there, it's so difficult to explain everything in a short period of time. So I think you need that long 6-part documentary that you're doing now to get it all out there and get all the information that people need. So you mentioned meat there. Is that what you are? Are you kind of carnivore type of based? Is that what you go for, your type of nutrition?
Well, just through my journeys, I didn't come in with a bias. I actually came in as like a food pyramid person 9 years ago. I was following, what do you have? Eat well. There, it's the same across the world. It's the same bad dietary guidelines that are based on grains and processed foods and fruits and vegetables. So I came in there like I wasn't some carnivore guy. Like I actually was not doing well. The quicker backstory that maybe I talked about last time was that I lost both my parents about 9 years ago. And that's what led me down this path. And I completely changed my life and my health just by simply cutting out most of the grains and refined sugars and vegetable oils and replacing it with more meat. That's the whole story. I ate more meat and fat, and I got rid of grains and sugar and oil, and my entire life changed. And you asked what's changed in the past 2 years since we talked? Not much. I mean, I'm still on that path. I think it's just proven out more and more each day. I am eating more fruit and more maybe sweet potatoes, and I make some bone broth rice so that it's like a pretty clean source of carbs, and I'm trying to lift more weights and maybe gain a little muscle. But yeah, no, I have changed, so we can talk about that. But like generally, it all comes down to that. It's the simplest thing of processed foods are bad, and the food pyramid is made up of processed foods. All the dietary guidelines of the world are made up of processed foods. People don't understand that bread is a processed food. This is not a good food. Maybe if you were a couple thousand years ago, grinding einkorn wheat, something like traditional wheat, and made your own fermented sourdough, yeah, it'd be okay, not so bad. But no, that's not what's happening today. It's highly processed food I think is bad for pretty much everyone. So
yeah, that's great, because that's great, because everything that I try and promote here as well is about real food. I mean, there is lots of boxes, like you say, that you can go in with the keto and the paleo, carnivore camps. And I have spoken to people from each one of those, and they'll tell you why it's the best for them. And it maybe is at certain points in their life. That's why I always say people will change. You can go into keto, you can go into paleo, you can go into carnivore, but it doesn't always mean that you have to stay there. The one thing that I think where you have to stay, though, is what you mentioned, is getting rid of all those processed foods and try and focus on real foods. Try and focus on, if fruit agrees with you, go with fruit. If certain carbohydrates like potatoes agree with you, that's perfectly fine. You don't have to restrict this, that, and the other to have a nutrient-dense nutrition lifestyle, which is what I promote. That's why I say it's got to be a lifestyle, because nobody can be, well, some people can, but not very many people can be 100% over onto the carnivore side, 100% onto the keto side. You will often find that there's certain things within your life that you have to bend the rules for. So why not make it that anyway? Why not make it a lifestyle anyway, and be able to incorporate everything into you, become metabolically flexible, and be able to incorporate everything into your lifestyle. I'm pleased you found that path for yourself, because I believe that everybody should be aiming for that path.
It's exactly the path. It's 100% what I found. You're taking the words out of my mouth. There's all these different dietary tools. I call it a framework. It's a diet and life. It's not a diet. It's a lifestyle. It's a framework even. Because if you want to talk specifically about what are these dietary approaches, well, it's a framework. And within that framework could be carnivore, keto, paleo. Absolutely. All of these things are amazing. And yeah, I think I've come along in my learning along the way and realize I don't have to just be one of those. And I don't have to just say like, this is the way to go. And even if at the time that's what was working for me, I think I'm glad that it's taken so long to make this docuseries, because I've kind of come out of certain camps and just saw things from a higher level. And when you look at things from the high level, it's exactly what you're talking about. It's just about nutrient dense food. It's about whole food. It's about doing something sustainable for life. It's about being a little bit flexible. Like and I'll eat a piece of pizza. Like, I don't care, because that's not the bulk of my diet. Like if if it's someone's birthday, we're hanging out, we got a pizza, I'm not going to not eat it and cause a scene and be like, what's wrong with this guy? Like, no, I'm metabolically flexible. I probably fix a lot of my gut issues. Like, I can handle things. If you're doing that every day, it's not the same thing at all. It's completely different. It's like one of the biggest lessons people need to know about diet and lifestyle nutrition is the difference between acute and chronic. It's the same thing with everything, actually. Acute stress versus chronic stress. If you do something stressful every single day, then it's gonna beat down your body. But if you lift weights strategically 2 to 3 times a week, that's a great stress. It does break down your body, and then your body builds back up and gets stronger. If you just sat there lifting weights 2 times a day, 7 days a week, it would not go well. This is well known. Weightlifters do not do that. They very much know about resting and all this stuff. So same thing with food. If you have 1 pizza per month, you're totally fine. Unless you have, severe problems. I'm not saying everyone should do it. Or if you have food addiction, don't do that either. You know what I mean? I don't want to spin people out of control. For me, totally fine. Maybe I'd be better if I didn't do it.
Like you say, it's talking to the general person. I mean, there is always going to be them outliers that need to refine things, need to really knuckle down perhaps into a carnivore diet or something like that to help their illness that they've got. But most people need to, like you say, dip in, dip out. Perhaps at certain times they need their carnivore diet, at certain times they need their keto diet, but be flexible with it. Make sure that you understand that just because it's working for you at this point may not continue to work for you all the way through. And I deal a lot with beginners, and it's really hard to start people off on a path and explain to them that, look, perhaps we're doing keto at the moment, and then we may do carnivore, and then we may do something else down the road. But all together, when you bring it all together, your main aim is that metabolic flexibility. Your main aim is to be able to bulletproof your body, if it will, bulletproof your body so that you can go through your life, like you say. You don't have to decline the pizza. You don't have to decline the bit of birthday cake, because you know that you've got 90% of your lifestyle nutrition nailed down, and you've removed most of those processed foods. So it's great that we're both shooting from the same place. Mm-hmm. You mentioned that you've been on a learning curve with your own nutrition lifestyle as well. And I know that you looked into what our ancestors do and how our ancestors used to design their lifestyle and design their nutrition. And you went to visit those tribes and you went to see what's happened within those tribes. Listening to you and learning things from you as well, myself, I knew that the two things that come across from your journey for me, what I wanted to ask you was number one, how processed foods and oils have seemed to have creeped their way into nowadays tribes, and number two, how they still have nutrient dense food and prize organ meat. So I'd like to hear a little bit about your journey and what you found out.
Wow, yeah, it was great. It's a year and a half ago now. So we went for the film, went to Tanzania and Uganda. We spent time with the Hadza, the Maasai, a bunch of other groups that people probably haven't heard of in Tanzania, then went over with the Pygmies or the Batwa in Uganda. So learned a lot from them. It actually just confirmed a lot of the stuff of what I was learning, just through the research and podcasts and lectures and all this stuff. It all lines up. That's the beauty of it. Like just to go back, yeah, carnivore, keto, like there's all these things. People get kind of obsessed with what they're doing now or what worked for them, but they don't, and they think like these are the rules, so I have to do this. But you have to zoom out and say, what do these diets have in common? And like, why do they work? And why is this, and when you do that, then you realize it comes down to nutrient density and avoiding. Well, basically, nutrient density implies you're not eating processed foods, because processed foods aren't nutrient dense. It's basically a whole bunch of extra calories from the worst things, refined calories from sugars, grains, oils that are added into your food that dilute out nutrients, right? So by definition, they are not nutrient dense because they're just stuffed with extra stuff. If you want to, so this is kind of the unifying theory. It kind of works for everything. Why are all people not? Why are all the people that are healthy eating completely seemingly different diets, but are still healthy? Like you could go to the Maasai and the Hadza. So these people are eating a super high meat diet. The Maasai are famous for eating blood, meat, and milk. The men mostly, dude, I mean, they have the traditions around the men doing this. The women don't exactly do that, but they're eating basically a weird carnivore diet, and they're super tall, healthy, strong, amazing teeth. Amazing, like it was amazing to see these people in person. And I don't think we even saw the best. Like in Kenya, we were in Tanzania. The Maasai are in both. Some of these guys, their average height is like 6'2", just the average, and just the healthiest people you've ever seen. And they're just eating blood, meat, and milk. But what does that have in common with? There's other populations that, I mean, I haven't really visited that many of these. Like there's the Sukasente or the Simane or the Tokulauans. Some of these people eat a high carb diet, but it's all real food, right? It's just like they it's what they have to offer. Some people like to bring up the blue zones. They're like, oh, what about the Okinawans? Like, yeah, well, yeah, they ate sweet potatoes. Like their traditional diet would be sweet potatoes and vegetables and fish and pork. And it's like, yeah, like just because they ate a lot of sweet potatoes doesn't mean it's it's some weird, like inexplainable diet. It's like, no, they're eating a whole foods, nutrient dense diet. They regard pork as a longevity food. They eat nose to tail. They're eating all the parts of the animal. They're eating all the parts of the seafood, super nutrient dense things. You're getting like mollusks and all. I mean, seafood is, you're eating the whole animal. You're getting all the nutrients a lot of the time. And they do eat the whole animal too. They're like eating the fish heads, they're eating the eyeballs. They're doing all these things. So you have all these seemingly different diets that people can't understand, right? The mainstream just says, hey, these are plant-based. These guys are plant-based. They're so healthy because they're plant-based. Like, no, they're not healthy because they're plant-based. They're healthy because they're whole foods based, and they're getting their key nutrients from animal foods. There's no healthy population that doesn't get their key nutrients from animal foods. Nowadays, people are trying, and there's vegans are trying to, and they're trying to get their nutrients in a false way from fake supplements and stuff like that. But no one, you can't get around it, is you need the key nutrients from animal foods, even if it's a small part of your diet. That's how amazing animal foods are. You can be like the Togu Islands, for example. They're on, an island in Micronesia or something, or near Tonga, or I forget where. I think it's the same thing, Micronesia tongue. They're eating, all they have access to is, just tons of tubers and stuff. And but they're getting great nutrition from seafood when they have it. And that is their key nutrients. That's why they're still healthy and strong and alive, is they can get so much quality protein, quality fat, minerals, vitamins from the fish that sustains them. So that's like kind of my big message here. But I'll go back to the Africa part. This is what I saw. So different times of the year, like I was only there for, one part of the year, but this is, kind of what we gathered from them, going to different groups and seeing what they're doing. They're always after animal foods, but they have to rely on different things at different times of the year, even in different times of history. It's sad that nowadays they're pushed off into lands that isn't great. They're being marginalized. This happens so many times with colonialism. People, the big countries come in, Britain, America, and they push people off their land, and then to give them like little slices, on the corners, and these people have hard times. So we saw it. The government in Africa, they want all the good land to have preserves, for game reserves, they're called, right? To have tourists come and pay tons of money to the government to be on that land and do a safari and all that. So or just cities, right? People, obviously these places are just developing as well. So the Hadza have very little land to hunt on. Also, the animals are way smaller. So if you look back in history, before 12,000 years ago, there was gigantic animals. And I interviewed all of these people for the film that are doing this research. I interviewed some of these great paleoanthropologists and archaeologists that are the actual ones that dug up the mastodon bones and looked for the cut marks and say, wow, this is like human 1 million years ago ate this. It even goes back 3.5 million years ago. We were crushing open bones and skulls to get the bone marrow and the brains out. And so we talk about this film. I had some great interviews with the scientists doing that research, and that's what we did. Then we didn't have all these big fatty animals. There's sort of multiple theories of when and why this happened, but around 12,000 years ago, they kind of died out. And guess what? We started farming. People kind of know that, like 12,000 years ago, we started settling down and doing agriculture. So either way, some people say overhunting. I don't think that's true. That some people say there's like impacts, like big impacts that completely wiped out a lot of these megafauna and kind of blocked out the sun, and a lot of things died off. But we were in need of calories, and so we didn't have these large fatty animals anymore, and so we had to that's why we had to develop agriculture. It's like, okay, well, let's domesticate these grains and settle down. And we kind of didn't know the ramifications. We thought, it's like calories are calories. That's why I hate this idea that a calorie is a calorie, because it's not. There's so much difference between a, nutrient dense calorie and a, empty calorie, right? It's what's called empty calories. It's just nothingness, just sugar, just grain. So that's what happened. We decided to settle down and eat all of these grains, and we actually got shorter, and we had more disease, and our brains got smaller. And we can see this in the archaeological record, is that there is a line in the sand when we look at the remains of people before and after agriculture. So this is kind of an extension of what's happening now in like the most extreme way, because now they have the very small animals. They can't even get, they used to be able to get zebras and like bigger animals to eat, like kudu, these are kind of like antelope, and they had all these bigger animals until just the last, I don't know, 50 years. Now when we went hunting with the Hadza guys, we were there for 3 days. They were getting like these tiny little animals. They had a bush baby. A bush baby is like the size of, not even the size of a football. It's the size of, oh man, it's just like a small little melon, or something like that. It's like it's not big at all. And they have to, that's what they eat. They did get a small dik-dik. It's like a little antelope thing when we were there, and we ate that. They cut it open for me, and I got to eat the liver raw, and it had all these guts all over the knife. This knife has never been washed, and they're just cutting open guts and giving it to me with slime on it, and I ate it and felt great.
Brilliant.
So yeah, I think they have a great microbiome, I think, as well, right? And I think it's because they're eating stuff. They don't have Purell. They're not like covering themselves in sanitizer every second. They don't use antibacterial soaps, and that's a side story. But they, yeah, they ate the whole animal. It was a small animal. They also got a oh man, what kind of primate was it? It was it was a baboon. It was
Baboon,
really
yeah.
gross actually. The last day they got a baboon and they skinned it. I was like, I'm not taking part in this. They're like trying to get me to eat some of it. I was like, no, dude. It kind of was sitting around all day and it smelled bad and it's just gross. It's too close to humans. I'm not trying to eat primates. So that's what they have to eat though. But
Yeah.
every day, that's what they go after. They go after animals, and that's what the men do. And the women stay back and they're kind of just searching for what they can. We were with another group too when the women were digging up tubers, and famously that's what they do. And we saw it. And these tubers were not like a modern potato at all. These were these giant tubers that were super fibrous, and they baked them. They would put them by a fire and let them bake for who knows how long. Then they would kind of cut it up and they just chew on it. And then they just spit out all the fiber. That was pretty interesting too. Then they gave me some. You can't eat it. I don't know what to compare it to, but you're just gnawing on just cellulose. It's just like eating like a piece of wood and you're just chewing it. And then it's just like a piece of wood that's a little softer than normal wood. And then you just still have 90% of it when you're done and you just spit it out. And so another side story, you got these like Harvard anthropologist guys like Herman Poncer, who I think is just totally off. He's like talking about how much fiber the Hadza eat. And these studies like, oh, they eat like 100 grams of fiber a day. And like everyone's so healthy in Africa because they're just eating fiber. We need to eat like 1,000 plants. I think that is completely untrue. Like if I think that just that one example is how they get this bogus info, because maybe the scientists, for one, they have this bias. These Harvard guys, they think that we need to eat 7 to 11 servings of grains. I talked to Herman Ponce on the phone once. It was terrible. He and this other guy, I've talked to these guys that do this research. They think I'm insane. They're like, why are you eating animal foods? That's so bad for the planet. It's bad for you. You need to eat grains. They like heard what film I'm making. They're like, no, you need fiber. We're plant-based. So they come in with these biases. So they see these people eating a big tuber. And so they're like, oh, okay, let's measure this. Let's, take it back to the lab. Wow, there's like 1,000 grams of fiber in this giant tuber. Okay, 10 people were eating it. We'll give them 100 grams of fiber per day. No, they spit it all out. I ate zero fiber. I was gnawing on that thing for 10 minutes. I got zero fiber. All I did was get a little juice. I got a little like glucose out of it. I mean, I got a few calories of just pure sugar, basically, right? And it's fine. That's how they survive. I didn't eat any fiber though. I had zero fiber. So I think that's a side story of how off we are with these measurements. And they're not getting plants. I mean, maybe it was actually kind of the dry season. I don't think this was like especially like good hunting season, and they still got meat. That's all they were after, was getting meat. They weren't like, oh, we're just going to go build a huge salad. Let's get like a giant bowl and let's fill it up with, 15 kinds of leaves and eat it. No, that's not what's going on.
I think it's so amazing to hear the stories like that, and your experience is something super valuable, because you can see what our ancestors used to do millennia ago. You can see that in these tribes nowadays, and it's great for your accounts to come across and to teach us that, and to pick up things like the fibrous tubers that those get in as well, because obviously, like you say, it gets construed into one thing and it perhaps isn't, if you can just spend the time with the tribes and look and see what's really going on. And it's so valuable for people to hear your experience with that. But there was one other thing that I picked up from what you said before, was about now it's becoming a bit more of a tourist attraction. Now people are going to see these tribes, and then people are probably bringing in processed foods for them. Have they noticed a difference, and did you notice a difference
Mm.
that you saw that people were bringing in processed foods to them? What did they make of that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And there's different levels of that as the further you get away from the city. So we should talk about all the different places, right? Because in the city, they are inundated with processed foods and they are very unhealthy. The further you go away from the city, the less processed foods they have, the healthier they are. So we could break it down to the city. Then there's like the villages, which they don't have, convenience stores in the villages. They're just kind of eating whole foods, but they're actually having to rely on mostly plant foods. And it's actually not going well for them. I'll come back around to that. Then you get all the way out to the actual hunter gatherers, like the few remaining people, right? That's the furthest out. You drive like 6 hours in a safari vehicle to get there. And that's, the Hadza. But we looked at all three of those different, groups and their diets and sort of made observations. So when you get all the way out to the Hadza, they definitely didn't have anything, but one of the groups we visited was the quote tourist group. So that definitely was something that was different than, and you can't really make that much out of, the observations because it's compromised. Because when we were there, we were trying to do like a real experience. We spent a long time setting it up so we could do the real thing. Like we want to go hunting. Like we do not want some tourist thing. And we saw the tourists come through and visit these people because these people were the most close to society. They were the most agreeable. They're like the one group that was okay with it. And the standard thing is tourists come in for like 30 minutes. It's like 1 hour. It's like your tour guide's like, oh, we get 1 hour with the Hadza. You show up, they bring candy. You watch them like cook by their fire, they eat the candy, and then you take a few photos and you leave. So we saw these groups come in and out and do that. And while we were like actually trying to hang out with them and actually spend time with them, and we actually went hunting with them, you know what I mean? So we saw what was going on, and it was, yes, multiple tourists, multiple treats, candies, and the thing is, these guys loved it. Who wouldn't? Like, if you're just sitting there eating like just tasteless meat all day, it's nice to, get someone to give you a chocolate bar or like some sort of sugary candy. Their teeth were messed up though, right? So this Hadza group, their teeth were really messed up. And it was interesting that some of the younger guys, they weren't as healthy. And the older guy, they were kind of like they didn't want the treats. It's kind of interesting to see sort of the old timers just sort of refuse it. They weren't eating it. And we actually even took a little like blood measurements and stuff. I was with a nutritionist lady who helped, and like the older guys had better blood glucose. Like actually the like younger guy that was eating all the candy, his blood sugar shot up like a rocket. And I'm like, oh man, this is not doing well for him. This is not good. But what's interesting is the other group I mentioned, because we saw multiple different groups, they were not the tourist group, and they did have good teeth and they were healthier. It was pretty amazing. Like they were just doing way better. So yes, their health can decline quickly, and your dental health is actually a window into your health. And that's the whole Weston Price stuff, which I'm sure you know about and have talked about before. And we probably talked about last time, but that's what Weston Price saw, is that went around the world. And as soon as the cultures got the modern foods, their teeth went bad, cavities, even their jaws couldn't even fit all their teeth anymore if they didn't get proper nutrition. And yes, it can go downhill quickly. And so definitely saw that. And then with the villagers, I wanted to come back around to the step 2, right? Between the city and the hunter gatherers, we got a group of elders together, and we wanted to talk to them and like learn from this group of elders. We got like 30 of the oldest people in this village. We didn't actually know it was an agricultural village. And so we thought we were going to get like this healthy group of strong people, like that just ate their natural diet their whole life. We got there, we started talking to them with our translator, and they just survived on corn flour. Like they eat something called ugali, which is just corn flour in water. And if you can get some milk, you put the corn flour in the milk, and it's like a porridge. And that's kind of what a lot of these people are surviving on now, because they don't have access to enough animal foods. And so they grow whatever crops, they can have fruit. There's like, say, a lot of bananas, especially in Uganda. They have like millions and millions of bananas. So these people are just eating bananas and whatever fruit they can grow and some cornmeal and flour or cornmeal and water. And they're not doing well. This is not good nutrition. They're surviving. They're not obese, but they are deteriorating like Americans and anyone else in the world that eats those ways. This group of people were in their 60s, 70s. They were bent over. They had arthritis. They had all kinds of problems. They were complaining of problems. We had to end early because they were so uncomfortable just sitting in a chair. You know, people kept getting up and leaving, and they were like hunched over, walking around. But they were so proud of their diet because they're like, it's almost like they had to be proud of ugali and eating, because this gave them nourishment. This was like the only calories they had, and they were just all about ugali. And they're like, we grow our foods. And it was just interesting because when we asked elderly people out in the actual hunter-gatherer native living people, like the Hadza and the other ones, they did not have issues. These older people were not hunched over. We even asked them with our great translator, do you have knee pain? They're like, no. What is that? Like, do you have back pain? They're like, what are you talking about? they didn't even know what we were talking about. We kept asking them, and they're like, did you have back pain? And finally the translator was like, yes, he fell out of a tree 5 years ago and he had back pain because he fell out of the tree. We're like, okay, not that, not we're not talking about that. So we asked so many questions to the women, like about pregnancy. It's like, do your kids die? Is it hard? They're like, no, it's super easy. It's just like you go out and you have a baby. That's it. It's like, do you have pain around menstruation? They're like, no. Like, do you have, like, we just kept asking questions. It's just no. They just lived like humans. Like, it was crazy. I think, and I mean, I know it works because I've done that for the past 9 years, where now I just don't need a doctor and I don't take any medications. I don't have over-the-counter medications. I don't have heartburn anymore. I don't have joint pain. I don't have all these things I used to have. I used to have allergies. I used to have all this stuff. This just went away. So the big takeaway is, if you just live like a human, you are just human. You're just like, your body looks correct. It's in the right proportions. You don't carry excess fat. You don't have inflammation in your joints. You don't have problems. You just work, right? Like, everyone knows that maybe when they were a teen, I don't know, for some people it's farther back than others, where their body just was normal. And we just think it's normal to just disintegrate. And it's like, oh man, I'm 30 now. I'm not gonna be able to play sports anymore. I'm not gonna, I'm just gonna have heartburn and this indigestion. I'm just gonna, have knee pain, blah, blah, blah. No, you don't need that. I've experienced it. I've seen it firsthand. These people don't experience it. It seems like they just kind of get old and die. It's like at a certain point, they just kind of drop dead. I think it's kind of like a Mark Sisson line. If you know Mark Sisson, he's great. He's 68, looking amazing. He's like, live long, drop dead. He's all about that, where you live, and then you fall off a cliff, or you get like some sort of disease from the water and you just die. And that's what humans did, I think, forever. And I think humans could live. We know humans can live to 120, right? We see people living to 120 now. It's not like these people lived to 120 because they were propped up on modern machines. You know what I mean? Like, the stories you hear, it's just some old lady who's like, I ate bacon every day. I had my little glass of brandy every night. They have like their weird stories, but they're just random people that just probably ate whole foods. It's like they just grew up on a farm or something. They ate milk and meat and potatoes and vegetables, whatever, and they just ate real foods, and they just managed to live. So I think that's what happened. If we didn't get taken out by sort of infectious diseases or accidents, we could have just lived long and just dropped dead.
Yeah, I think we can. I think that's the ultimate goal for everybody to do. I think, just live your life and try to avoid all those chronic diseases and anything that could take you down a long descent towards the end, which nobody wants today. Everybody wants to try and keep going higher and higher and higher all the way to the end as much as they possibly can. And I love the way that you say there that the further away you got from the city, then it's kind of like a diagram. You could see it getting worse and worse and worse all the way from the city. And most people nowadays, most people listening to this are going to be in the city, are going to be in that ball of processed food. And really what you need to do in your own mind is take yourself away from it. Like, like Brian's saying, and go that step. Perhaps take that first step to where that tribe were with the Ungali, and just take yourself away from the processed food. Sure, that's maybe not optimal health, but then you can go even further away and go right out into the Hadza tribes as far as you can go, and try and opt for more nutrient dense foods, and they tend to be the animal foods, the ones they prize, the ones they go for mostly. Did you say ask them, or get an impression from them that they were to eat particular parts of the animal and they weren't to eat particular parts of the animal? Did they have a feeling for certain things like organ meats, and did they prize that?
Yeah, they got the liver first. It's first and foremost, it's cut out the guts. So they didn't eat the guts. No one eats the guts. I'll tell you about the Maasai actually. So, but the Hadza, they took the guts. Actually, you know what? I don't know what went on. The dogs, it seemed like their dogs stole the guts. So I didn't know if they were gonna give them to the dogs anyway, or if they're gonna do something else with them. I mean, but the dogs stole them, and I remember them getting mad because the Hadza have a group of dogs that go hunting with them. So it's these wild dogs that just hang around them and help them hunt. It's pretty cool. And so they get the scraps. So they stole the guts. It seemed like they put them up in a tree. They eat the liver, and then they cook. Then they like quarter it, and they quarter the animal and they cook it on sticks around the fire. And they eat everything, the brains. Like there was the one youngest kid was with the men. I don't know how old he was, maybe 13, 14. He was like, part of the adults now. He was gnawing on the skull. Like he had this cooked skull of this little dick, just gnawing on it, like getting every bit and piece and tendon off the skull, then cracked open the skull and started eating the brain and gave me some of the brain. So I ate, it was like pudding. It was like this sort of like tasteless pudding, the cooked brain. So that was pretty good. But man, yeah, they're not wasting anything. Like they're gnawing every bit. Like they are chewing on the bones. Like they are getting all of it. And then with the Maasai, they butchered a lamb for us. But we got a sheep, and they drank the blood. So the one guy, he was kind of showing off. He was just like drinking the blood out of the neck. They like slits the neck, and he was like collecting it in a bowl and just like drinking it, and like kind of like getting his head under the neck and getting the blood. So they're not even wasting the blood. And then they cut it up into all the pieces, put it up on sticks, eat the whole animal. The Maasai put all of the guts into a pot. So they had a pot. The Hadza, they don't have anything. Like they have like one knife, and that's it. Like everything else is just made from nature, and you don't even have tools that, they just stick things on a stick and then cook it. So the Maasai had a few things, like they'll have like a pot. They'll trade someone for like a big metal pot, and they put all of the guts and all the organs. Oh, we ate the liver raw too. Sorry, with the sheep that they butchered. They drained the blood, drank it, and then shared the liver with us. And then they put the rest of the organs into a pot, and they stewed it up for, I think, 3 or 4 hours. It was like a very long process of them boiling it, and they added some herbs. So they call it herbs. So actually, this is another thing. When scientists go on, they're like, oh, these groups are eating these herbs. I don't even know if it's like herbs like we think. They don't get like a bushel of cilantro and a big thing of green onions and like a bushel of whatever. Their herbs were like roots. Like they got this peppery root that was just white root, and they put it in the pot and they boiled it. And so there actually was no herbs. I'm not against herbs. I actually love herbs. Like I don't eat like big kale salads or anything. I eat, some herbs. Like I just eat like herbs on the side of my meat. But they got these roots that were peppery, and they probably served some sort of purpose. Maybe it was antimicrobial, maybe it adds some flavor. But they had all these guts in the pot. And so after we ate the very, very tough and tasteless meat that they cut off for us, and we ate the throat, we were eating everything. Like we just happened to sit next, my little group was sitting next to a guy who was just cutting us like the throat and the like shoulder bone, and then we were just eating like random chewy bits off this animal, and we just kept eating it. But anyway, you just eat it all. I mean, there's no like cuts. They don't butcher like cuts of meat. They're just like, we're eating this whole animal. and all of them were just eating it with us. I say groups, like we were with the Maasai, and then our group was 4 people, my director guy and Mary, the nutritionist. And we were just, everyone just gets their own stick of meat, and then they cut off bits and pieces, and you just keep eating it, and he just hands you a little bit until it's gone. And then at the end, they take the stew, which was pretty much just like the guts and like the feces and all the like entrails in one pot, and it smelled like diarrhea. Like, it was not good. And I drank it. Like, at the end, like, Mary is like, hey, we got to drink this, it's part of the experience. And I didn't see her do it, but because I had to go back to the tent, I came back and I was like, did you do this? Because this does not smell good. And she's like, yes, I did this. I was like, all right. And I drank it, and I survived. I felt great. I felt amazing the whole trip. After eating these weird things, my stomach was fine. I felt better. I felt amazing. Like, I think my microbiome improved. We're talking about, like, they don't have all the sanitizers, they don't use all the Purells or whatever. I think I probably got invaluable microbes from doing stuff like this that probably can keep me healthy.
Yeah, brilliant. I love it, because lots of people will like turn their noses up at certain cuts of meat and won't opt for offal, or certainly not brain or anything like that. But as you describe it, they go for everything, even boiling up the guts at the end into a stew. And you just got to think that that's their one main thing, is to get as much nutrition as they can from that one particular animal. And that's what we should be striving for as well. We shouldn't be going into the supermarkets and just looking for the tenderest steak you could find. I mean, they probably didn't even know what a steak was. They just, like you say, chopped up little bits of meat and ate them along the way. And that's absolutely brilliant to hear. And it's really valuable experience that you've had. And I hope some of the listeners, some of the viewers can get lots from it. But you said earlier about plants, and there is this big agenda at the moment going on about plants versus meat. And when you look back and when you visit tribes like you have done, you can see that yes, we can have plants in our nutrition. There's nothing wrong with having plants in our nutrition. And you said it yourself a little bit earlier on, but we really do need the meat. We need meat in our nutrition to get all the vitamins and all the minerals and have basically all the bases covered. So why do we seem to be going down this vegan agenda at the moment? And can you dispel a few myths there for us?
Yeah, it's a big story. Depends on how far back you want to go, and if you want to wear my tinfoil hat or not. I think there's a lot. I actually did a presentation at a conference here in Texas, and it was called "Exposing the $1 Trillion Agenda Against Red Meat," because I think there definitely is something going on, and it's definitely like sort of a worldwide thing, and that everyone's kind of on the same page. That is in the these global forces, the sort of upper powers that be, that are doing this, and it kind of trickles down into the media, into mainstream culture through. I think there's a guiding hand in this. I don't think this is just random, that all of a sudden we're like, oh, plant-based is amazing, because we're like, hey, for all of history, we were after animal foods. There's simple, basic nutrition science that shows animal foods are the healthiest thing we can get, bioavailable, more bioavailable than plant foods, more complete nutrition. So why all of a sudden would we go backwards and go against science? So there has to be something, because it makes no sense, right? So it just depends on how conspiratorial you want to be about it, and how, you know what I mean? You could, on the surface level, we just know it's not true. No, that we know basic science, like I said, that animal foods are more nutritious.
Yeah,
So
without a doubt, I think it's driven by money and profits and advertising.
that's what I'm
And
saying. So yeah,
yeah,
there's money, there's profit. So on the simplest level, or the complex level, is just money and profit. And it's just like how deep you go into that money and profit web, and how much you can trace it back, and why it's so coordinated, is where you can get conspiratorial. But it is simple, that it's just money and profit, that people make way more money on processed plant foods. That was kind of the culmination of the presentation, or just one of them, was that there's a like law of nature that there's a simple law of nature that you can make more money off of processing plant foods, right? That is just a law of nature. It just happens to be, and the Egyptians figured that out. That's how we first had this like extreme disparity in wealth and power, is because these Egyptian pharaohs, they became pharaohs by accumulating wealth, which was accumulating grains, and you could store them and you could tax them. So it's like, if you can, it's something that's storable and it's something that people need, it's calories. And so that same thing has still been going on. These gigantic food corporations, they realize the most profit is in processing down plant foods, whether it be those seed oils, whether it be the grains, or whether it be sugars and corn syrup or any other type of sugars. These are all from plants. They all are super cheap. They're actually all subsidized, really, in governments. Not all governments, operate like the U.S. The U.S. just has tons of subsidies for corn, wheat, and soy and all that type of stuff. But they're all super cheap, profitable, and they're all super bad for you. They're all kind of just empty calories in the best case. And at the worst case, they could actually be damaging your gut, actually have pesticides all over them, actually, doing all kinds of things. So that's just it, though. It's
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
hey,
that's it. You only have to go and talk to your local butcher, and he'll tell you that, yeah, sure, he can make a living from it, but he's not earning big money. There's no big money in meat, proper butchery. There's no big money in it. But you look at, like you say, a simple processed food. What are the margins there? They're absolutely massive. They're making loads and loads of money. The guys at the top from processing simple foods like corn, wheat, soy, things like that. So is that the reason why the whole world's turning vegan? I mean, like you say, it depends
yeah,
what you want to believe. Or
no, it 100%
do
is.
you follow the science? Do you follow the science? Do you follow what people like yourself and people? There's plenty of people out there now saying, look at what our ancestors have done. Look at what the tribes still do nowadays, like you've described to us today. And then it's up to you. Do you really want to believe the fact that humans evolved on plants, or do you want to believe the fact that we need meat in our nutrition? So I think that's it.
And there's no money in whole plant foods either. I don't have a problem with whole plant foods, and I'm sure you don't. I mean, maybe some things like kale. I mean, this is a very recent thing that we've kind of developed, and like eat it. I got caught up in this eating spinach and kale shakes, and it's like tons of oxalates. And I think you have problems. It's like natural to like blend them up and drink them every day. But generally, I don't have problems with plant foods, and there's no money in plain whole plant foods either. It's not like Big Blueberry is out there making billions of dollars off of blueberries. It's just people making a few cents. It's like the meat costs like $8 a pound. That meat probably costs $7 a pound to grow and ship there and like get to the store and all that stuff. I don't make any money. I'm like seriously like breaking even on my meat company. And I realized if I wanted to make money, I would have just made some like protein bar, some processed
Yeah,
keto bar. I
yeah,
could have made money. I'm not about it, but man, you sell a box of cereal. This box of cereal, $5 for a box of cereal. That probably cost them like 20 cents to make and like get there. Like it's crazy. So yeah, with the whole foods in general, plant or animal, there's no money. And so yeah, if people were promoting like actual whole food diets that included animal foods, it's like I would be okay with that. Maybe no one's doing that because no one's making money. No one's like, oh man, we should all eat like a paleo diet, get all, like fresh fruits and vegetables and meat and all that stuff. No one's promoting that in the
no,
mainstream. There's no money to be made. So it shouldn't really be a war of plants versus animals, really. It should be the war against of processed foods versus meat being called the enemy, right? That's the real story.
that's it. That's exactly my war. It's war on processed foods. And you can find whatever avenue, like yourself, you've got the Sapien framework. You can find where you want to go as long as you're having whole foods. Then, pick if you want to pick more of a plant-based side, you do. But I'm always going to tell you, like we've said today, that the animal foods will top up your nutrients, top up your vitamins, because there are certain things that you can't get from plant foods. And I think we talked a lot about bioavailability. I've talked a lot about bioavailability on here, and we did last time about how the human body is better suited to take vitamins and minerals in their animal form from animals, from meat. So if people want to listen more about that, then they can go back and listen to the first one that we did in episode 6. But I don't want to take up any more of your time today. It's been absolutely brilliant listening to you and brilliant listening to your stories. And hopefully one day I'll get the chance to go and visit those tribes, and hopefully they haven't been infiltrated too much with the processed food from us. But no, I'm really looking forward to you getting the documentary finished and getting it out there, and then people like us can keep fighting the good fight.
Oh man, I love it. Thanks so much for letting me spread the word. And yeah, I'm going to get back to working on that film.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Brian.